Airport Yoga and Wellness. Thank you for joining us in this collaboration with Charlotte Behavioral Healthcare to discuss yoga specific to depression and trauma. So I plan to review a couple concepts I discussed in the last video on yoga for recovery specifically. So that can be helpful to take a look too, even if that doesn't feel like it describes you, you might still get some wisdom from it. So discussing these topics, specifically parasympathetic nervous system and sympathetic nervous system, the idea of rest and digest in fight or flight. When a cheetah or a lion is released from the zoo and it is rampaging around town and you end up caught in the crossfires and running away from this cheetah, your body is in this fight or flight response, right? Your survival is at risk. You're running away, your heart rate is increased, the muscles tense, all kinds of systems in the body kind of shut down so that you can focus all of your energy on the escape and on your survival. Versus a state of rest and digest, generally when we're about to go to sleep, we eat our food, we feel tired after, the body's taking its time digesting our food so that it can get the most out of it and help us feel energized and healthy and well as we move forward from there. So these are the two phases that are two ways of being, states of being. And the more that we move in the world, in this day and age, a lot of fight or flight response is out there. So whether that's almost getting hit by a car on your way to work, if that's getting yelled at by your boss or a partner, getting into an argument, high stress or trauma, brings us into this fight or flight place, and often we get stuck there. So we're only operating in fight or flight, and the body is no longer properly healing and resting and kind of nurturing itself. So what yoga can do is bring the body back into this state of rest and digest so that we can start to release any stress, trauma being held in the body so that we feel lighter, our bodies work better, and we're healthier as we move forward in life. So I want to share on the whiteboard here these concepts written out as well as another visual to help demonstrate this anxiety and depression, how they operate in waves. It's been really helpful to me on my journey. So I'll get it right here. So here are those words that I mentioned. Sympathetic and parasympathetic, fight or flight, and rest and digest. So keeping these in mind. So when we feel our best, we are living and working and operating in a state of equilibrium. So when we leave a yoga class, hopefully we feel really good, relaxed. You may have heard from a friend or felt yourself that kind of zenned out feeling. And that's really when we're here at this rest and digest place. When a traumatic event occurs, so this can be on your way to work, getting in a car accident, accidentally running over an animal on the road. It can be a fight or a really hard conversation or argument, or it could be something more major like the loss of a loved one or a major change that's occurred in your life. And it might be one or it might be several. As we move through these traumatic events, the body processes this as the need to fight for survival. So we move into this kind of pattern of peaks and valleys. And they generally get a little more intense over time. Not that I showed you that here, but the peaks might get higher, the valleys might get lower as you go on. And this would go like that. So when we're up here, we're experiencing anxiety, hypervigilance, When we're down here, we're experiencing depression in hypovigilance, which is the opposite. Just not caring. Here we can't stop looking around, maybe not feeling safe, feeling like you need to do something in order to ensure your survival, worry. Chronic fatigue and insomnia can accompany both of these. And often over time, they might get worse without anything bringing you back to this place of equilibrium. And that's, unfortunately or fortunately, a natural pattern of our being, our physiology, where our body knows to do this in order to try to keep us alive when traumatic things happen. So a traumatic event to one person can't be compared to that of another. It's all very personal, and the way that your body, your anatomy, your physiology processes an event might be different than another. Also, the number of traumatic events someone has had will impact how this cycle works. So just being aware of this as kind of a normal process of our body that we all go through to different extremes throughout our life. What we hope that yoga can do, what yoga has been proven to do, is to bring the body back to this state of equilibrium, regardless of how long or how intense these cycles have been. There are practices, be it the breath, movement. There is a yoga philosophy, kind of a thought behind it. Whichever way you choose to practice, there are ways to come back to this state of equilibrium. So we're going to move through a couple practices now, and I'll discuss more which ones might be bringing us back from hypervigilance and which ones might re-energize. Here, to keep in mind, the heart rate is very high. Here, the heart rate is very low. Thinking about our level of activity in that way, fatigue, kind of apathy, the couch potato, not getting out of your bathrobe, versus being out in the world and just being really stressed and maybe even angry and frustrated at the amount of overwhelm and kind of a surge of information and worry. Your heart rate is up here. So moving through these cycles. So looking at some practices now that work with these concepts. So, let's find a comfortable seat. Yoga is for everybody. If something doesn't serve you, if it doesn't feel good, then try another way to be there. You can move the body, adjust, modify, find what works for you. Ideally, working with an instructor, a yoga instructor, they can help you find what works best for you. Just know that if it doesn't feel quite right, it doesn't mean anything's wrong or that you're wrong. It just means every body is different, and we do our best to make ourselves comfortable when we're on the mat. So whether it's crossed at the ankles, legs extended, can even lie down. So find what works for you for a couple moments of grounding. Just 2 to 5 minutes a day can really facilitate and help on that shift, bringing the body back to equilibrium. It doesn't take long, but it does take self-discipline to make that time. So the first thing we'll do here is that introduction, that grounding. If you only do one thing in a day, this is really what will help you the most. And it's primarily breathing. So be with it, again, see what works for you, take what does, leave what doesn't. So finding yourself in this comfortable seat, the hands can rest on the knees or wherever they fall. The legs are extended or you're laying down. The spine is nice and straight and tall. Wherever you are, that's what we want, is a nice, tall, straight spine. The crown of the head lifts up toward the ceiling, and the hands and shoulders rest heavy. You can roll them out a couple times. Notice where your sit bones meet the floor, bony part of your bottom, and then get really tall from that place. You take a breath and let it go, trying to breathe in and out through the nose because it brings us into that rest and digest place. If for some reason I've had students that have allergies and a really hard time breathing in and out through their nose, it's okay, breathe through the mouth. So cut yourself some slack, be easy, go with it. But if it's an option, if you can, through the nose. So breathing easy in and out through the nose. You can take a big inhale. Dropping the gaze, maybe even closing the eyes. On an exhale, let the breath go. On your next inhale, take a big breath. Notice the chest expand, the back body expand. Maybe the belly rises in 3 parts. Exhale, let it go. Take one more breath that way. Inhale. Just notice, observe the body expanding. And then exhale. Watch as the body returns to neutral, like ocean waves, if you will. So it may just be 2 minutes, 3 minutes, just watching the breath ebb and flow. See how you feel after. If you'd like, here's another breath, or a pranayama. It's a fancy yoga word. Another breath technique we can use to move the body quickly into rest and digest. It's one of my favorites, called extended exhale. If you're ever having a panic attack, an anxiety attack, or just need to quickly bring the body back to equilibrium, this is that breath. So we'll take a big inhale. Exhale slow as you can go. 8, 10 counts, exhaling through the nose until your lungs are empty. Exhaling. 2 more breaths that way. Take a big breath. And then exhale, 8, 10, maybe even 12 counts. When I do this with kids, I call it snake breath, and we go hissing as long as we can go. Exhale. Take 1 more. Inhale. Once you've completed, let's take 2 to 3 breaths just in stillness. Check in how you're feeling. Not good or bad, just notice. So no matter how you're feeling in body and mind, these breaths that we just did will help move you into that equilibrium state where, optimal health and wellness in body and mind. So it's better than that. You can kind of feel relaxed after. So you can try that on your own. We'll add in now, coming up to stand, a couple postures, movements that are great. When you're feeling depressed, as we saw on the whiteboard, you want to bring the heart rate back up because we're in this depressed, almost hibernation mode, and we want to reinvigorate. It's hard to do. Speaking from experience, many people I know and love, as well as myself, have battled states of depression. So go easy on yourself. Know that every day is different, just like we're saying in yoga. And I like to think of it as a step-by-step. On any given day, say, I don't have the energy to go out with friends. I'm going to turn that down, but I'm going to go for a walk around the block. And I'm not going to go around the long way. I'm just going to do the small, a block or 2. And then the next day, you might get on your mat. And you might do 5 minutes on the mat. Say, I don't have the energy for an hour, but I'll do 5 minutes. And that's the compromise. And then as time goes on, your walk might get longer, because we know nature is very healing. And your time on the mat might get longer. And then over time, you might feel like you're in a place to reach back out and to be with people who love and support you, and to move into these other aspects of your life that you've withdrawn from temporarily. So it can be a long process of just being patient with yourself, but always taking those baby steps forward. So these are some steps. A couple minutes of breathing is something you can do. I'll always say nature really first is a great healer, a great uplifting light. Another way, we want to bring the heart rate up. We want to bring new energy, new oxygen into the body so that we feel energy. energized, and we want to go out and live our best life. So we'll stand up from here and find yourself at the top of the mat. I'll face this way to start. The feet are hips width apart. Checking in that the feet, if these are my toes, that the toes and the heels are in a line, that they're not wide, they're not pigeon-toed in, they're parallel. Checking in through the four corners of the feet. So you can rock the weight forward, back, and side to side. Feel when the weight of the body's in the pinky toe, and the big toe, the ball of the foot, and the heel. Noticing mindful awareness. And then finding the four corners rooted. I'm going to turn this way as we move into a couple other postures. So the hands rest by the side in your mountain pose. The feet are hips width and the knees are soft. So we're not holding on to anything. We're easeful here. The crown of the head is lifted, the shoulders drop down the back. Take 2 to 3 breaths, a standing meditation posture, mountain pose. Breathing space into the chest, into the throat. We'll add on a little movement. On the inhale, draw the arms up overhead, lengthen the spine to re-energize. Exhale, fold. Hands may or may not touch the floor. On an inhale, come up halfway. The hands rest above or below the knee. Crown of the head lengthens away from the tailbone. Exhale, fold. Push the floor away. Come all the way to stand. Palms come together. Maybe the hips draw forward. The gaze draws back. Exhale, hands to heart. We'll take 2 more. Inhale. Exhale, fold. Inhaling halfway. Exhale, fold. Push the floor away, come up to stand. Exhale, release. One more, inhale. Exhale. Inhale halfway. Exhale, fold. Push the floor away. And back to heart. Breathing here, mountain pose once again. So those are called half-sun salutations. Classically, 1500, 2500 BC, when yoga originated in India, half-sun salutations were actually done by the warrior class to prepare for battle on the battlefield. In their version of boot camp, they would get up at sunrise and salute the sun, essentially warming up the body and re-energizing, reinvigorating, sending new blood throughout the body, newly oxygenated blood, so that they can perform to their optimal level the rest of the day and on the battlefield. So very different from today, where yoga in the United States is seen as primarily for women, but that's not the case, and it does help all people of all ages and ability levels and backgrounds. So I hope that something we talked about, I shared today, might be helpful to you. I thank Charlotte Behavioral for the opportunity to share, and I hope to see you on the mat, be it at Charlotte Behavioral or if you're practicing at home. I wish you all the best in your journey.